Shall we get going, Jessica?
Yep, that sounds great.
Okay.
Sure, I gotta. Yep, I'm all good.
Meeting's called to order. January 25th, 2021, Gold Hill City Council. Roll call, please.
Mayor Studebaker,
Here.
Councilor Beshad,
Here.
Councilor Hinckley,
Here.
Councilor Rigney,
Here.
Councilor Palmer,
Here.
Councilor Wilson. And I know that Eric hasn't been sworn in yet as a counselor, but I figured you'd want him in on the goal setting session. So he is here.
Good.
No, he's not a bona fide, but we have a quorum.
Okay. Should we do the virtual Pledge of Allegiance?
We should.
I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance
To the flag
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it
for which it
stands,
stands,
one
one nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
justice
for all.
All right.
Well done. We're getting better at that.
So Jessica, where does our new councilman fit into our today's agenda?
Where does he fit in?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're setting,
Yes, but we want.
yeah, he's going to be sworn in a week, but you had the work session scheduled first, and I figured you didn't want him to miss out on that since he is going to be the counselor.
Good. All right, so we just have one item on our agenda, correct? Our
That's
goals.
it. Let's set some goals for this year.
Good. Been a rough year, 2020. You know what they say about not planning ahead. So why don't we just start out and everybody gets 5 minutes or so and talk about your top 3 or 4 goals. Off the roll call order, please.
Sure. Councilor Beshad.
Okay, so I have a list with, I think 7 things on it. These are not only my thoughts, but they're also, I took a little kind of informal, not really poll, but what do you think on Facebook on 2 different Gold Hill Facebook websites today. I'll mention the public response when I get to the topics that they weighed in on. But I think that, and some people did weigh in on this number 1 thing, but I think the number 1 thing we have to consider is our fire abatement issue. That is a number 1 emergency. That's just, if the town burns down, we don't have a town. You know, we've got to have an evacuation plan. We need a communication system. We need a siren. We need, a signboard, all of those things. And I know Can Do is working on some of this as well with the mayor and maybe Jessica, I guess you guys had a meeting. So I know that we're working on it, but I think we really need to accelerate that because it's just a few months away. We meet once or twice a month. There's a lot of work involved in getting all that done. So yeah, that's the number 1 issue. And then the 2 issue for me, and this is not something that the public brought up because most of them are not aware of it. And it gets real touchy when you do bring it up. And that's the wastewater treatment plant. When I toured the wastewater treatment plant last summer, I think it was when I first was elected, I remember, I'm pretty sure it was one of the people there giving the tour, I'm sorry, I don't remember the names, made the comment that and maybe I misinterpreted it, but that the sewer system, the collection system, our sewer pipes, could be infiltrated with groundwater if we had a really, really, really big wet weather event. And that would overpower our wastewater treatment plant, which is already only firing on, half the cylinders, or one tank out of two, something like that. So, and that would be disastrous. We'd have spillage into the river, we'd have fines, and it's just one weather fluke away from that happening, just like a fire is just a weather fluke. So we've got to make a decision. It's a really, really, really hard decision. And it's going to have it's a decision that's going to have impact for decades. But we've got to make it. And then we got to start moving on.
If you don't mind, let me interrupt you for a second. I don't want to forget in case we don't circle back to this.
Mm-hmm.
But I have talked to the new engineering company. They've started their evaluation of the master plan. They are coming out to our plant on the 2nd so that they can do an on-site inspection for themselves to help us make a decision.
Okay,
So.
Excellent. All right, great. So we are moving on that. Also, I am told that there's a problem with a riparian way issue, and I don't understand that issue, and it somehow impacts the wastewater treatment plant, but that's something else we need to resolve. Jessica, I think you've explained it to me before, but it just doesn't stick. And I don't know if we want to get into the details on it now, but that's another thing on the list. If we need to do that, let's get that done.
Okay.
And then I think, sorry?
Malia, do you have any more details about how the riparian issues is impacted by the water plant?
It has to, as I understand, and this is just hearing from someone who knows something, told me this, that it has to do with not being able to get the EPA approvals, perhaps, or something like that. We need to look, I guess, somehow we need to look into it.
I know one of my major goals is getting the riparian way ordinance underway this year, because it limits us in a lot of the things that we would want to do, like grow our urban growth boundary, our utilities, anything we want to do on the river, our parks are all affected by the riparian way ordinance, and we need to be in compliance.
All right, great. So excellent. Thanks. That's what that's about. So the next one, I think, and again, a real touchy issue with the public, the Whitewater Park. And I would just really like to see us make a decision so we can move beyond it, because every time it comes up, it's so divisive. And I don't really understand what is needed from us, the city, what Steve Kiesling and his group needs from the city, or what the city's involvement, is, and how, what the timeline is for making those decisions either. I know that there's, something to do with the Olympics possibly, and so there's a timeline. So I'd like to know about that. I'd like to have us have a decision on that. The other issues that came more from the public, and this one again relates to fire, but a fireworks ban, especially in the summertime. Can we, I know it's redundant. I know there's state laws against it, but if we had
it's actually already in our code book.
It's already in the code. So we need to educate and advertise.
Yeah. And I have talked to other cities about this, and we can make all the legislation we want, but what it comes down to is having the manpower to actually enforce it. And that's where they fall short.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and maybe an educational campaign and maybe some signage. This is a fireworks free city. It goes up on June 15th kind of thing, and some educational components. The other things that came from the public, there were several little things, and basically it boils down to responsiveness. Somehow people feel like the city isn't quite as immediately responsive to their needs and things like that. So those are just issues that I think let's talk about. And then the other things are things like appearances. Somebody said, we should have art, and people were so upset when Buddy's mural got taken down, and that would be a prime place to put up a nice historical mural. What if we paid an artist to put a mural there that had something to do with Gold Hill history? If we got the permission, of course, from the owner or someplace else, there were things about, trying to make the city prettier, basically, more trash cans, just more flowers and prettier things, stuff like that. And then, of course, the last one that people brought up, and it's really an issue that's much too great for the city to tackle, except in maybe really, really small ways, and that's the homeless situation. People are put off by homeless people looking like, some homeless people just look homeless. Some homeless people look like they're very high on something, and it scares people, and they don't like that. That's what you see, when you walk through town or drive through town. So, like I say, that's a huge issue. I don't know that Gold
Yeah,
Hill can
we could
do
solve
very much
that.
about it. Right. Somebody asked for a place because people are finding a lot of used needles in the parks and things. And so, yeah, if we had a place where people could turn their needles in, a needle box, apparently those are fairly successful in other places. You got to have that someplace probably attached to the wall in City Hall under a lamp or something, or it'll be vandalized, or whatever. But, anyway, those are some issues that, like I say, I don't think we can solve them, but the people are concerned about them. So I think we need to at least address that. And I think that's everything on my list. Thanks for listening.
So does anyone not have the fire abatement under the general topic of safety, city safety, and wastewater plant? Does anyone not have that on their top 3 or 4? Okay. It's certainly on my top 3. So thank you for bringing that up, Malia. We'll take that as a given that 2 of our top 4 or so are going to be fire abatement and wastewater. Okay.
Excuse me, Brad, if I may, I left one more thing off, and that's the ethics committee, and I won't go any further on that. Just say, put it on the list, please. Sorry.
Okay.
Well, it's formed, right? And it's up and running.
No, it isn't. We only
No,
had
it's
2
not.
candidates, and we wanted to have 3. So no, it's not.
Okay, so then that will go on our an agenda, huh, Jessica?
Well, we've been asking.
We need a
for
candidate.
applicants, as,
So I heard an
Yeah.
interesting suggestion for the ethics committee to see whether or not Judge Zametti might be wanting to sit on the ethics committee, considering she falls under different ethics standards as a legal officer. She falls under judicial ethics and she falls under ethics for the bar. That perhaps if we were to exclude her from our own ethics revision, since she's already under like a legal bar, that maybe she might like to sit on it, considering that she is a legal representative and might be considered.
yeah, it's a thought. We can ask her.
All we can do is ask.
Saying that,
If she
when you're
would,
asking an attorney for advice, that is a slippery slope, and that's what she fears. If she commits to it, we have to watch how we word our questions. We can't ask legal advice of her because that's setting her up for a lawsuit. And that's what most attorneys will tell you. That's why you don't have police officers giving you legal advice or anybody else legal advice until you hire them as your litigator.
Right. This would just be as a representative on the ethics committee, as somebody who's
Right.
already held to such a very high ethics standards.
And-
I consider her to be very ethical.
And I have a feeling that she'll probably say no for that reason, but it doesn't hurt to ask her.
And that's all I'm saying, Danielle, is that's probably what's going to happen. Most attorneys
Yeah.
try to shun from that kind of thing.
It was just a question. Somebody had made the suggestion. I thought it was a good one.
It's a good question.
it's worth asking.
Okay, well, why don't you keep on rolling, Counselor Hinckley, and let's go down your list.
Okay, so I do have Riparian. I'm going to go over the things that Counselor Beachhead has already gone over because I agree with what she has said is important. But I will reiterate that one of my top things is actually the Riparian Way ordinance. We are not in compliance. We don't have our own ordinance. We're supposed to. In order to, like I said, grow our urban growth boundary, there are some utilities that are affected by it. Any kind of development that needs to be done on the river, we need to have a Riparian Way ordinance in place before anything like that can even be considered, because that's a entire West Coast thing that is
Yeah.
done, and we just need to get it done and buckle down. The next thing that I have on my list, and I really don't have a very long list because a lot of my stuff was taken by Councillor Beachai.
All right, I got to go first.
What I do have here as my second priority is the charter and municipal code review. We have a lot of ordinances that are in conflict with our charter. And I know that Jessica has requested to do a review. I think that if we as a council decided that we were going to have a work session a month, we could break down a good portion and have the charter review as well as our code in alignment by next November's election season and get it on the ballot, get the charter revision on the ballot. And that's something that we can work out if it's a goal that we want to achieve. But I think that it is a priority. A lot of the things we want to do, we can't do because we don't know where it falls within our charter and what the rules are. So we need to make sure that we are in agreement on what the rules are in our system. I have a preliminary timeline, but I won't bore everybody with that in my 5 minutes. What I will say is if it's a goal, I do have that preliminarily written down. My personal goal for this year is for the website. I would like to get the committee pages pounded out with each of the functioning committees so that their minutes are going to be up there, their agendas. I would also like to work on a chamber section. Even though we don't have a currently functioning chamber, I think that our local businesses, especially with the COVID issue, could benefit from having a description of their business on the city website, advertising them. I know that we had done a brief advertisement campaign for the Gold Hill Dentistry on the website where we just put a banner up there letting people know that they were running a discount. I think that that would be very beneficial to our local businesses to be able to have something like that up there. And I think we should support them in any endeavors that they have in trying to maintain business and their economy.
Okay, thanks. Who's next down our roster?
That'd be Councillor Rigney.
Bill?
Hello? Can you hear?
What's important?
Good. What's important? Well, haven't, excuse me.
Bill, we can't see you.
No, I know that.
Okay,
See, I can't see me either.
okay, no big deal. Just
I was thinking what I would like to see is as much progress as humanly possible on the Gold Hill, the parks plan, the master plan, as far as pushing the grant applications and everything else that we can go along, get along doing as far as our preliminary stuff, and we can still work on just the basic cleanups as we're doing. I understand Richard and the Parks Commission and the volunteers are doing a pretty good job down there too. I don't know too much about the riparian way thing. I was also wondering about how that was the sewage treatment in Redford. Wasn't that their plan to plant trees along the south side of the river over there through Lampman and all that? That could be part of our little plan too.
Yeah, that's part of what they're doing down over there is Medford's Riparian Way plan is to help cool the river down there. We just need to have an ordinance in place. We don't have an ordinance at all at this point.
Well, that'll help. As far as the rest of it goes, we've just got to beautify. That's all. Be as efficient as we possibly can. Also, on as far as Councillor Beachside and Councillor Hinckley goes, I'm all for the emergency plan. That's a big one. Okay, that could be that's coordinated through sheriff, other law enforcement, and/or civil authorities that we don't have any control over. They'll control the roads and the access, and the egress points. But as far as our siren, our early warning system, we don't have anything. Do we even have a shortwave radio that if it really gets bad, that might be our only way of contact.
We got nothing, Bill.
There are a number of local citizens that have ham radios.
Right. Yeah, that maybe we should tie in with some of those guys too. But as far as the city, we should have one. I can't really think of too much else. I'm keeping a close eye on my beach down here as far as our homeless problem goes. I haven't seen a whole lot of campers down there lately. That's a good thing. No fires. That's an even better thing. And I understand we're also going to be pushing this spring or coming up pretty soon with the fire break across the across the ridge on the other side of town. That'll be a really good thing too. Not a break, but a thin. That'll be very good. It'll probably give us the break we need if we do have that big fire come that way. Other than that, I'll stand down the rest of my time to whoever's next. Thank you.
So Bill, as far as the fire break, yeah, that's top of the list. And I think that's on schedule to go March, April, when it kind of dries out a little bit.
Right.
Can you
Because that
explain
will
to
be-
me where that's going to be? I don't understand.
Basically along the interface between 6th and all the trees that come down and interface with the town.
Okay, all right.
When the fire district.
So the
3 went
hillside
through-
there behind
Behind
Hanby
you,
and up in the.
Yes. Fire District 3 assessed our relative risk, and 1 out of 4 is the worst. All the 4s were along that interface and along the river. So working smart, prioritizing things. We need to focus on that first of all. And I'm angling for 100-foot defensible space, just as they suggest with houses. So that's what we'll go for. And I think it'll probably come down to maybe us getting a grant of $400 an acre, and that will offset part of it, but we're going to have to come up with something.
I know that I was going to make the request of budget committee this year for potentially looking into fire goats. I know I asked for this last year. I'm going to ask for it this year about looking at fire mitigation and getting a fire goat team in here to clean up some of the local brush.
Okay. Are you our point person on the fire goats?
Sure, I love goats.
Okay.
Danielle, the soil and water people, I brought that up when we had the meeting in September with the soil and water people. I simply told them, let's put 100 goats down here and this place will be a moonscape in a week. And they said, well, it's true, but the goats also eat what we want to keep as well. And my theory was, let the goats eat that thing right down to wherever they want, and we'll put in the real stuff that we want down there. That is approved, that is indigenous or native.
I mean, goats will eat anything, and there does have to be a warning to citizens that don't have fenced yards. There is an entire process of going through the fire goat procedure, because if you don't have a fenced yard, you're going to need to put a temporary one up, because if the goats get in, they will eat you.
The goats just run free around town?
Yeah, they have a
Oh.
herd. They have a herd master, the same way that a sheep
yeah.
herd has a master.
Oh, huh. They have somebody herding them all the time.
So when I looked into it, Danielle, what I was seeing was they were putting up fencing. And so they would move the area that the goats were to mow down.
Right.
And it's, a fence with a electric wire on top. So it wasn't
Right.
free roaming.
Well, no, they, like I said, they constantly have their, I'm not sure what the word is called, their master with them.
Goat tender.
Yeah, goat wrangler, that's what it is.
Herder? The
But
shepherd?
you know what? There's very little downside to that other than it's going to take someone else's goat operation. I don't think the city is going to get in the goat herding business anytime soon.
No, we would have to hire somebody to do
Contract,
it.
yeah.
But I love the fact that, that's as green as it gets. Okay. Palmer, what you got?
I will be looking for money. And I will be doing lots of grants. And I heard everybody, you know, the riparian way, that's great. Was curious on why that wasn't ever put in the master plan for Parks and Works, but it should be added to that. If we come up as a council, if we come up with an ordinance, which we will, that needs to go into our master plan, Parks and Works. Because when you brought that up, I went automatically picked up the Parks and Works on my desk here and was looking at it, going, it's not even in there, and it needs to be in there. So anyway, saying that, homeless. We've been addressing homeless for quite a while, Malia. It's a problem, and the reason it is a problem in such a small rural city is because we're small, and everybody notices when we have homeless people coming in. There are grants for that. I'm looking at those too. That will
Grants
be
For doing what?
homeless. You know, your sharp boxes, that was addressed a couple of years ago with the old regime, but that kind of fell through to the wayside because county uses those, and I know Central Point has sharp boxes. Strategically located all through the town, and it seems to be working. But that was addressed. I'm glad you brought it back up. So we need to, you know, I'm with you on that. Other things that I've heard, the fire break, we've been dealing with this. Mayor, I thought you were the one that was heading that one up.
It's top of my list. Yep.
Okay.
And what I've been told
I heard
is
that
it's
they were
too
supposed to
early
start.
right now.
How come they haven't started that yet?
Well, what I was told was on the fire break along 6, it's too early, it's too muddy. Equipment would be involved in that. We're going to wait until the mud dries out, probably March or April. But we did get a good effort of pulling out invasive species along the river. We got a good start on that.
I would like to see us really focus on, we're running out of money and I know we're all aware of it. So, but now we're able to get grants. This is something that I've never seen since I've been in Gold Hill, and I'm going on 6 years. And now we're, thanks to Jessica, kudos to you, girl, that we can write grants. So, and I'm focusing on that. That is my main objective for this year, or is I'm going to be writing on all kinds of grants. There's money out there available. What we're having problems with right now, the COVID-19, that's kind of hit all hometowns. And so the money froze. So hopefully, you know, keep your fingers crossed that they're going to start opening the gates and let us write more grants, and so we can get some of this money to us. That's what we need. We need money. All this can't be possible unless we have some money. So that's where my main focus is this year. And that's all I got.
So we keep hearing a few of these priorities repeated. I'm hearing fire abatement at the top, wastewater plant, the parks.
Riparian ordinance.
Yeah.
One of the biggest controversies we're going to have with the riparian ordinance is that it does not just affect our parks land. It affects anyone on the riverfront. Anyone with riverfront property is going to have to be in compliance with the riparian way ordinance, which can cause a lot of controversy with the public. You're talking about people, there's a limit of, I think the county is wanting us to have a 75-foot setback. When we tried to go through this before as a citizen group, there were a lot of people that were really upset because those setbacks would put the setback right in the middle of their living room.
Yeah.
So that's where we're going to have a bit of an issue with the riparian way ordinance, and it's something we have to consider.
And that's why it hasn't been done yet. They keep
Right.
changing the goalposts on what they expect. When I was looking at Riverfront 10 years ago, you had till the middle of the river. Then it was the middle of the river, then it was the high water mark. There was the river's edge, and then it was 25 feet back, and then 50 feet back, and now they want 75 feet back. So it's a land grab, and people with property on the river, they spent money to get that, and now they're going to be limited in how they can develop it. So that's going to be a tough one to get through, but we do need to address it. So if I were to add to what everyone else has said, community safety, which I put fire abatement right at the very top, is a top priority. The defensible space, an evacuation plan, communication, whether it's ham radio, sirens, signage, a talking signboard, right up there. Wastewater plants. Also under infrastructure, I would add to increase our freshwater reservoir. You may recall that after the fires decimated our neighbors, prophylactically, in preparation, people were watering their yards and their roofs, and we lost 50% of our water reserve. Our reservoir was at the 50% mark. So it's grossly inadequate, and in a fire, it would be gone in a hurry, and then what are we going to do? So I would put up there, let's put in temporary or permanent, approach the funding thing, and double our water reservoir capacity. Parks and planning commission committees are critical. The planning commission, that kind of goes with the charter and muni code. We've got to standardize that and make everything in agreement so that if we change the rules on people that we're encouraging to come in and spend money here, it's not going to go well.
So as far as the municipal code, I know that Jessica has addressed it with the planning commission. That would be title 15, 16, and 17. And I know when I talked with Jessica about what I was wanting to do with the muni code, the planning commission would be in charge of titles 15 through 17, as that gets really deep into the planning weeds and things like that. Whereas we would look more generally at the other titles in our goals.
And a good idea that I've heard floated and makes complete sense to me is let's not reinvent the wheel given our lack of personnel, time, and money. Let's go ahead and borrow from our neighbors and use that as a starting point and then tweak if we need to. So that would greatly expedite the process. We know we're not going to get in trouble. Maybe it's using the standardized thing from League of Oregon Cities or someone else.
Yeah, we already have it all. We just have to start
Okay.
working on it.
Mhm.
Right. So, that's working smart. We'll cut down on reinventing the wheel there, but that will go a long ways. The other thing that I was thinking on was recreating our community and our the bonds within building community. And I've got a couple of things in the works that I think in the next several months between now and June can be launched. There's a guy I went to college with who's a mindfulness trainer, and he would be willing to come down for a couple of days and do a seminar for the community and then do private sessions, which is all about, controlling what you can control, breathe in, breathe out.
Brad, forgive me. I
Living
think
out.
I'm missing what you're saying. Building what?
Community. Remember when we used to get together and talk on the corners? We haven't done that for a year. And I think
Community. Okay.
community, a group. We're in Gold Hill. We don't live in Medford because we want to talk to our neighbors. Another one that we can do directed toward the kids would be a treasure hunt. And it'll involve a lot of parents as volunteers, but a little half-day thing where the kids get to come down and we've got a whole storyline. I think Bill Rigney's going to be involved in that. Bill, you still going to be our miner?
I haven't heard from Ed lately.
Okay, he's got you on for the minor. So short version is we're spinning a tale about this miner who got rich, went to the bar and got rolled. Someone took all this money and he's going to pass it on to someone who's worthy. So all the kids go on this treasure hunt. They have to prove their worthiness with skills of, or with tasks of skill and honor and wisdom. It's just a fun thing for the kids. And then maybe over the summer, we can do the Friday night movies where we'll get some format. It may be in cars, it may be in a park, but free Friday night movies. So we can do stuff together as a group. That was kind of the one other area that I didn't hear much about. But I also agree that we've got a revenue problem. We've deferred maintenance on a lot of stuff. Our public works department is using their own equipment, which is not a good thing to do. So we've got to get smart, and I think grant writing, if we can get some external money, that's got to be the way to go. I don't know that we can shrink down and reduce our spending much more. Jessica's done a great job of watching our budget and spending money smartly. So, the other side of the ledger is growing revenue. Anyone else have thoughts other than grant writing now that we do have the ability to participate in that? Any revenue streams?
I know one of the things that I floated with previous counselor Deb West was the idea of possibly developing one of our park spaces, maybe over in Lampman or an area more downtown, maybe in the sports park. And it goes kind of along with the idea of the having someone live overnight in the sports park, was putting in a pad for food trucks, running the water, running the electricity and the requirements to set up a food truck pallet, and then charging rent for any food trucks that want to set up out there for events or over the summer when the kids are doing like Little League and stuff like that. I know that that's one of the things we don't really have are a whole lot of food truck spots that meet the requirements as far as running water, toilets, and electricity. And were we to just set that up, there's a really successful pallet in downtown Medford that I think we might be able to model after in one of the parks.
Yeah, they
park is
are
that?
popular. And-
It's the one in Medford is just downtown. It's not in a park. It's
Okay.
a downtown food truck space.
Oh, down by the college, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, right, yeah. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, and I think it could be incorporated, with other things like that. You do that in the park and have food trucks there. That'd be really cool.
So, Jessica and Tony and Shannon have moved along the path of pricing out, seeing what it would really cost for us to put a park host position in place in the park. And even though we're going to get a bunch of help from our great allies here in town, I don't think it's going to happen before we go fiscal 2021-22 in July. So basically that's not going to happen this spring, summer. It might be for part of a summer, but Danielle, that's a great idea of encouraging the food truck growth and then getting some dollars from them every event.
Wonder if there's a grant for that, for putting the park host pad in.
I would wonder, yeah, especially because if you think about it, that's what Buddy's was asking when they came to us. They were looking for a place to put a food truck. And had we been able to develop something like this, we could say, yeah, go there.
Mhm. Yeah, it'd be nice to have something in the park, but it'd also be nice to have something downtown, that people don't have to drive. Well, not everybody has to drive there, but and closer to businesses to kind of give the opportunity for people to do a little more business downtown too.
Yeah,
So maybe
agreed.
both. Yeah.
Agreed. Well, can we agree on our top 3 or 4 priorities?
Probably,
Safety and fire abatement, is that in the top 3 or 4?
Yes,
definitely. If not number
Wastewater,
one,
I have it as number one.
that
I think
goes
most of
number
us
1.
have it as number one, yeah.
Good. Number 2, are we talking wastewater, freshwater plant, marching along that path, staying on track? Or in the next group of 2 or 3 major priorities? I mean, we got to stay on track on that.
Right,
I have the riparian way as number 2. But because that goes along with the wastewater and the freshwater plants. So that's just, that
combine them.
Combine them exactly, because we already have a wastewater and a water master plan. We just have to come up
Yeah.
with what we're going to do with this riparian way and incorporate it into both.
At this point, there's really not that much for you to do for the wastewater plant, other
Mhm.
than you make the decision, then the rest just kind of happens. So
Right.
And I think the riparian way affects so many more things than just the wastewater and the water treatment. I think it affects the parks. It affects everything that I think that maybe the title needs to be about the riparian way, and the wastewater and water master plan fall under that.
Well, I'm sure it would have some effects too on the Whitewater
Yes.
Park issues, sure.
And then our 2 big committees, our 3 committees, ethics when we get enough participation, but the parks and planning, let's drive that ahead as we have what looks like renewed community interest.
I don't think that's number 3. I think number 3 is the charter and code book overhaul.
Okay.
Yeah,
What do we think, guys, gals?
I agree with Jessica.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
That's
many
number
things
2.
depend on that municipal code and the
Yeah.
charter overhaul.
Yep.
This needs to be the year that we fix it and stop talking about fixing it.
Okay. I like it. And then
I
maybe
think-
is our number 4 the functioning committees?
No, I think money has to come first. We obviously, fiscal, we need money. We
We
need,
need money.
yeah. And Ron, I'm happy to help you with the grant writing. I've got lots of
Thank you.
time on my hands and I know how to write, so
Okay.
we'll talk about
you know
that
what we might
separately.
want to do on that, if,
Yep.
because our master plan breaks out revenue sources. So what we might want to do is each of us just take a section that we're particularly interested in, and then, that's 6 or 7 parties working hard on grant writing. We could get a lot out in a relatively short period of time. Say, let's get our first one together. And I think some of them, it really is just completing a standardized form. It doesn't really involve a whole lot of other particulars.
I am willing to fill out a form. What I will tell you is this: I am no good at asking people for money. I'm just really not. If it is about persuading people to give me money, I'm not good at that.
Well, that's why we're doing what we're good at and what we like. So if you want to write a couple of grants, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of personal persuasion involved. I think it's going to be a mail thing. I could be wrong about that.
It's
but-
mostly written. It's,
Yeah. Good. Okay, well then that's probably our top 5 things, huh? And then we have a whole lot of other important items, but let's just make sure that we do first things first, and then we'll blend in some of these other things. The riparian way and the Whitewater Park, that certainly is within the development in the parks group. The fireworks, that's all about fire abatement and public safety. Art and beautification. I think we've made some real strides in the last year, and agreed. I think we
have.
need to keep driving that.
Yeah.
And again, that can be quick and dirty. Changing banners every 3 months or 2 months is what they would do in Ashland, and it just added a festivity, and it was not very expensive. Now, they had the big fancy light poles and the brackets, and so we can get there, but the flowers, I think, went a long ways. We do some more banners this year, and if there are public events, we can advertise our public events here in town. And other ideas for beautification and just making the town a little more smart. Let's be kind of putting that in the back of our minds and see what we can come up with under the criteria of quick and easy and not expensive. So let's get some quick wins out there, because we're going to need a lot of goodwill to tackle the riparian way. And I think if they see us planting some nice plants and doing other things that they appreciate, that won't hurt.
Back to the riparian way thing and the 75-foot setbacks. Are there not like grandfather clauses? Is there time?
That's what I was wondering.
Well,
Are there-
the issue-
you give people time. Can you get grants for these people? Because it's going to be expensive to have to chop their living room and
Well, see, that's the
whatever.
thing. So that's where the grandfather thing comes in.
Right.
They won't have to get their living rooms demolished. What it means is they can't do anything new.
Okay,
So
well,
if
that's
you-
not
Yeah.
as bad. Okay.
If you wanted to renovate your living room or expand a wall within that 75-foot setback, you can't.
You're muted, Palmer.
We can't hear you, Ron. You're muted.
I know, but I just want to let, the thing that people were complaining about is that 75-foot setback plus another, the additional 10 feet because of floodplains.
Yeah.
People are still paying taxes on land that they can't even do anything with. That's what the complaint was about.
But let's not get into the weeds on this right now.
Right, but I'm just letting everybody know
Yeah.
that's, and we never heard anything back from them. I think it's time we need to call someone and find out exactly where we should move forward on this.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Good. All right.
Brad, it sounds like you might be wrapping up, and I just want to ask a really quick question before everybody closes
I want
down and
to.
leaves. Are we getting the budget committee together here soon? Because we should.
Yes. So this is the last week of January. So I had W-2s, 1099s, and payroll taxes. And so that's my focus this week. I did finish the W-2s and 1099s today. I'm gonna knock out the payroll taxes, and then I'm going to pull up the budget stuff and start making our budget calendar for this year. It is the next thing on my list.
Great.
And before we wrap up, I'd just like to hear what Eric has to say about all of this and what your thoughts are, Eric, on what we've all talked about. Eric, you're muted.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
All right,
So
Eric.
basically where I'm at with this is, I like where we're going as far as the priorities and things like that. I think, in my opinion, I think kind of what we're losing sight of here is the position that we're actually in and what we have the capability of doing. Okay. It's great to have a vision, but you need to understand, like Ron said, we don't have a ton of money and we need to be focused on the problems that are at hand, the infrastructure, the things that just blatantly aren't working. Before we start getting crazy about some of this other stuff, like if you want to plant flowers and do that kind of thing, dude, spend some money, like Brad said, we need to get back to community. Okay. The fact is this COVID-19 has decimated community everywhere. It's like you hate your neighbor because they don't have a mask on, because they looked at you funny, because they parked too close to your whatever, and I'm as guilty of it as everybody else, but the reality is it needs to change. And for a city like this to continue living and working, that really kind of has to be one of the priorities, is getting us back together as a community, because it just straight up isn't going to work otherwise.
And how do you see us doing that?
By building community, talking to your neighbors, you have to, that's how it works. We
What
have
can
to
city
build that
council
way.
do? What can city council do
To promote that? Go out and talk to your neighbors. We can't just sit around and be like, yeah, we want this to happen. You got to tell your neighbor to cut their fire break. Okay. The city can't be responsible for cutting everyone's fire break. We
Maybe
threw
help
down
your
$1,000
neighbor cut
on trees this
theirs
year
and
for
they
our
can
fire
help you
break.
with yours. Yeah.
Okay.
I know
so,
personally, with the Bee City Committee, we have some plans to do virtual, like Zoom sessions like this about seed exchanges, promoting flower planting and things like that here in the community, and things that we can do in small groups throughout the city to beautify, but also that you don't have to have a large scale event to do that. And those smaller groups can also build community while they do that. Unfortunately, right now it is January and B City Committee isn't going to be getting launched probably until about March. But I think we can all build the community, like Eric is saying, in smaller ways. We don't necessarily have to have giant events to do it. It's about talking to your neighbors.
And I did list community as the number 5 on the priority list. It is one of the top 5. So we can be thinking about small
And I-
ways to make that happen.
I think, I mean, just the Christmas lights this year to me, I've been here my whole life. So I see this, day in and day out. The Christmas lights and the festivities this year were, in my opinion, probably as good as I've ever seen, so it's a step in the right direction. This COVID thing has kind of sucked in that, it kind of takes away a lot of what we're used to doing, but I think kind of it's made people realize that you need to build small and we need to fix problems from a local level, and it just has to really be done by baby steps, and really where we're at with the city of Gold Hill is, the reality is we're in rebuilding, we're basically building from the ground up because whoever was in front of us before crashed this thing into the ground hardcore. Okay. So we just kind of need to keep that mentality in mind that we're kind of almost building from nothing, and just kind of keep that at the forefront of the rest of our goals, without getting too, without getting too expansive with, I don't want to say stuff that's unrealistic, but, we just kind of need to keep our focus tight on the problems that we have and need to be dealt with immediately.
I think all of the goals that you guys have picked today are all well within our realm of what we can actually accomplish this year. We may need some money for some of this fire abatement stuff we want to do, but all the rest of it is just us putting in our time. It's not as much about money. So I think we can pull these off.
Good.
In line with my personal goal, Jessica, can I get a list of the local businesses that have business licenses in the area?
Yeah.
And that the website thing with the businesses, it wouldn't be that big of a deal just to put a link page to everyone.
Right, that's what I'm wanting to do, is to put in a link page and send them an email and let them know that we are willing to do promotional material for them.
Right. And keep them on a mailing list, because the businesses are one of these things that's going to be the forefront of community. We get it out there, get it in front of the people where they're, in the storefronts and things like that. Sometimes it is just a little sign to make people kind of wake up. The people that aren't living right next to someone who can't hear about it. So.
Yeah. I like it. And again, that's a voice of someone who's a little bit further detached from what we've been doing the last few years. And so that's probably maybe closer to where the general community is. So we appreciate your thoughts on that. So Jessica, we will have these prioritized and listed out. And we're doing a full meeting next week. Is that correct?
Yes. And I'll go ahead and put the goals on the agenda for next week too, so we can, for everybody who didn't tune in tonight, they can hear what goals you've decided on. That'll be one of the things on the agenda. But yes, that is our next meeting next Monday night at 6 p.m.
One of the things, I have a city project section on the website, and if you can just list them out in a quick email for me so I have them structured, because I'd like to put a project page to each of those under the city project section so that we can keep an eye on that and keep a running tally and say, all right, this is our goal, this is what we've done to achieve it, so that people can go and see our progress and potentially have links in there to contact whatever counselor is in charge of that.
Okay.
Good. Okay. Thanks for everyone's time and input. I would encourage all of us to keep thinking about these 4 or 5 things that we've all come up with, and maybe flesh them out. Think about how we personally can do something to move the ball in the next couple of months. So, March, April is kind of the end of the flu season. So maybe things are going to open up a bit there, and for sure we'll be ready to come out of the winter doldrums regardless. Anyone
Ready
else?
now.
Sorry?
I said, I'm ready now.
Yeah, I got you
I think
there.
we all are.
Okay. Thank you for your participation. We'll see you next week. Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.